Hi, people of the world watching internet that has to do with cars. Welcome to this. My 1974 Toyota Celica ST that I just stripped down so I can paint the engine bay, which will soon permanently house this Toyota Tundra 2UZ V8. If you're new here and you'd like to get caught up on this project, up above my head is either conveniently a link to the playlist on it, or also could be a delicious recipe for penguin eggs Benedict. Why don't we eat penguin? Like, why is it just chickens? Before I can shoot this engine bay in a fresh coat of paint, this needs to happen. Finga Sander. While I very well could use some of my spot weld drill bits and drill out the two spot welds that hold that on, I don't want to pierce through the firewall, so using a finger sander allows me to just nick off the top of that weld so I can pop it off of the firewall. The downside of the finger sander though is that it generates a lot of heat and there's sound deadening and jute on the back of the firewall, and I don't want that to catch on fire. So this little body spatula right here is perfect for these type of jobs, for piercing in between the two layers. It's strong enough that it can do that. I don't want to do it too hard because then I'll accidentally tear through the firewall. Ask me how I know. So I got it bent around where the spot weld is, so that way I don't have to waste a bunch of time grinding aimlessly. It's been a while since I pulled the original engine out of this car, but if I remember correctly, this little tab is just a shelf where the clutch and brake lines used to sit up above, kind of protected it from the back of the engine. And now where it's located, it hits the back of the engine. That should be fairly easy to clean up. These guys are in the way. These are going to hit the top of the bell housing. Rapito, trapito. Go. Tap it. Not quite. Much like the first taberdoodle I removed off the firewall, this one served a purpose, but it's now going to be in the way. I don't think I'm going to use these either. Yeah, that one, and that one. Nope. I realized this was starting to become slowly addicting, and if I wasn't careful, next thing I know I was going to have a perfectly shaved engine bay and turn this thing into a show car, which I'm not trying to do. I want it to look factory, like it came from Toyota this way. There were pimples in the sheet metal all over the place from things being attached and welded on the other side, and I couldn't leave it like that. This one, I want to keep these, but they look like prime spots for corrosion to build up. You can see it's already got a ton of corrosion on it, and it's just a prime spot for that to build up. It's really not worth it in my mind to have that. I don't know why I'm concerned with corrosion. This is never going to be a daily driver vehicle. It'll probably never see rain. So I made a compromise of keeping the ones that are functional, got rid of the ones that are not going to serve a purpose anymore. This is both structural as well as complicated, because it's double wall and it's spot welded. Essentially, it's like an I-beam. I-beam of genie. This is a finger saw, and it is broken. I bought a backup one from Made in Elsewhere land, and it broke after the second use. So now I have two broken finger saws. I gotta make this one work. Level, Sharpie. I dimpled this thing so I could see what I was doing, but apparently I didn't dimple enough. A shape is a shape. Keep that in mind. A shape is a shape.
Yes, yes.
I'm just gonna measure, because math never lies. Half of 33 is 16 and a half. All right, here goes nothing. What the hell? My blade doesn't even stay in. All right, round two, go. That's good. Now I gotta figure out how to, I guess I'll nibble it out. This is so tricky to use with it being broken because this thing just wobbles and I have to like steer it. When I started this project, the reason why I stripped the entire car down to the bare metal before I repainted it is because of the fact that the car had been resprayed at one point in time in its life and had a little bit of body work done on the rear quarter panel, and I didn't want to trust someone else's body work. The engine bay, on the other hand, is all the original paint from the factory, and this came from a corrosion-free environment, so there's really no need to strip this all to bare metal. The only area that is of real concern is where the brake fluid from the master cylinder ate the paint away over the years. This is a whistle biscuit. This is a spacesuit. That's my space sound impersonation. Anyway, I decided to put on the spacesuit here because I don't want to take any chances with the paint that's on this car. It may contain lead in it. I don't know if they use lead in automotive paint. I'd rather not know, honestly, because when I sanded the original paint off of this car, I don't think I wore this the entire time. So please don't leave me a comment telling me whether or not there's lead in that paint. Thank you. That was a lot. These smell like undercooked gluten-free pasta and imitation shrimp meat. As the gentlemen across the pond at Bad Obsession Motorsports have pointed out, bracketry is one of the most important parts of a vehicle build. The quickest way to have your project look like it's half-ass is to skip out on this part. My HKS manual fuel pressure regulator needs to live right here where I marked it in Sharpie. It'd be massively stupid of me to not test this with the hood, or as they would say, bonnet. Okay. Good news, I have tons of room in here. Oh, that won't be an issue. Perhaps. Oh, that's gonna suck. I have a flashlight on the other side, and it's not helping me whatsoever. So the sound deadening under the dash is removable. It looks fairly easily. But I don't want to take the whole thing out. I only need to take part of it out. Oh, it's held in with a cable for the antennae. Remember when I said ask me how I know? How I know. This is a brake proportioning valve. This is a brake line. Okay, so that's gonna live there. Let's give you a complicated bracket, that's for sure. This is my artistic representation of the mental thought process that occurs when you ask your significant other where they would like to go for dinner. This is a genuine HKS bracket, if there's such a thing. It came with this. This is best because this bracket is made in Japan, like the car. Last thing I want is this sawzalling through my washer fluid bottle. Clearance is clearance. Ow, was my ass! What the fuck? The cleanest and most factory-looking way I could do this is to weld a captured nut on the back of the firewall, just like they do from the factory. However, that would require removing most of the interior, including the dash, which is 50 years old, and introducing a bunch of squeaks and cracks and rattles and problems that it's not worth it. That looks pretty good right there. Oh my god, I can't even crush it. Okay. Oh, that's perfect. I know how I can do that. Objective 1, complete. I don't need to make any more holes in the firewall because I have this bracket and that hole to tie onto for the brake controller. And down here is a power supply conundrum. This is the main engine bay power fuse junction. As much as I wanted to keep it all Toyota wiring in the engine bay to look factory, I'm gonna use 2 of these waterproof MIDI fuse holders. Just because of the location that I'm gonna be mounting them, there's a high probability they're gonna get wet, and because these things are way better than factory. Okay, good. I would make sure I'm not drilling into my tire. Instead of drilling a ton of holes in the car, I just came up with a genius idea. Day number 3. This engine bay is about 60% complete before paint. Let's make it 90. Perfect. This is 400 grit sandpaper. This is a soft foam sanding block. If I was going for a show look in this engine bay, absolutely would I fill in any of the unused holes that are no longer needed, as well as I would skim coat the entire bay and make sure it was super smooth and body worked out. And I might even go as above and beyond as to add some seam sealer in any of the little seams and cracks between the different panels. But I want this to look like an original job, like it came from Toyota, so I'm not going to be doing that. I've been doing that for 2.5 hours. It was like 10 seconds on camera. If you see these little areas where there's more saturation of color, like for instance inside that spot weld, that's classified as a shiny. And that is a surface that paint will not mechanically adhere to. And despite what most YouTube videos will show, it's not just a quick swipe of a piece of sandpaper and spray it with a gun and it's a good paint job. It requires hours of digging your fingers into those little tiny crevices and make sure you create that tooth with the sandpaper for the paint to mechanically bond to, because it's a two-step process. You have to have chemical adhesion as well as mechanical adhesion for paint to properly bond. If not, then you have paint lifting. I'm sure you've seen a car that's been repainted by a cheap body shop and it just flakes off after a year or two. That's why, because those steps were not followed. Additionally, if you look right here where I have the bare metal, the red oxide primer, and then the color coat, if you can see visual harsh lines in the paint surface, that is going to show through when you spray a coat of paint on top of it. When you're prepping the surface to apply your primer or your epoxy coat, if you can see these areas where it transitions from the different colors, the layers, you want that to be a nice fade. You don't want it to be a harsh line of yellow, red, silver right away, because that will be something that will show up once you paint over it. You gotta think the paint is only so many microns thick. It's like putting a piece of fish skin on top of hamburger meat. That sounds oddly maybe tasty. Finger sander does whatever a finger sander does. That and that don't really serve a purpose anymore. Before I came to the decision to remove this, I tried to rack my brain to see if there was any way I could repurpose this, but where it's located, I really can't. But I'll try to save it in case I want to weld it on somewhere else. This is a Scotch pad, and this is a Scotch pad covered in 400 grit sandpaper. It's great at getting into little areas that I can't get a block and my fingers are too fat to stuff into. This back edge is hard to get to because there's just waves and ripples in the sheet metal because it's like the way they manufactured it back in the 70s. These areas around this stuff is a pain to sand, but luckily the paint in these areas is perfect. Like there's no failure spots. This is not really gonna be very effective. It's too big, but I gotta save time. I've been sanding for going on 5 hours already today, and I'm good. I'm good with sanding for the rest of the day. This will work, but it's just good enough right now, and that doesn't cut it. Oh no! My Dremel doesn't work anymore! Oh, I'm sad. I'm so sad. Oh wait, I'm an idiot! I had the wrong one plugged in. And this is the right one. Oh good, it still works! By providing this crease, I make it essentially easier for you to fold it and throw away the edges. Or that's Uncrustables, I think. Now I got a nice lip right here that I can fill with weld, so this is super strong. Well, I technically could use a welder and stick those two pieces of metal together. I am not a professional welder. That's not what my profession is. I don't have 10,000 hours of experience to get really good at it. And Charlie has been welding for 20 plus years and can make that look like a robot did it. So I called him up to stop by and lay a nice bead on there. Is that it?
Yep, and then I gotta do the bolt.
What he's adding here is a captured nut to the back side of the fender well rather than using a nut cert.
Alright.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's way the hell nicer than I would have done it. Whilst Charlie was at it, he also filled in that little tear I had in the firewall, which is super thin sheet metal. I don't want to spend the last day in this video sanding, so there's one last task that needs to be accomplished. RIP my back. Ah, there's my socket. Ah, there's all my tools I was missing. Ouch. That's like stabbing yourself in the eyeball with a zip tie. What would happen if I simply try to bolt it up? The question is upper hole or lower hole, which is the better? That's not what he said. Alright. I gotta be really careful because my heater core pipes go through right here, and this pedal is fairly tall. I can't block the heater core pipe. If this works, I literally only have to move one bolt hole, nut plate. So what you're looking right here is the pedal position sensor for the drive-by wire circuit. This is the rod that goes down to the throttle pedal. However, unfortunately, getting the lower to bolt into exactly where it needs to go, yeah, it's not long enough. So I need to modify the rod and make the rod come down further to reach the pedal. If I were to simply relocate the holes up higher, what would happen is when you press the throttle pedal, it's smacking the transmission tunnel right there. Making that upper hole ain't gonna be easy. I gotta take as little meat off of this thing as humanly possible so it can still be welded on. Jeez. Ta-da! Nut plate, extracted and reusable. And luckily the old hole that the bolt used to go through is super tiny, so it's not gonna be hard to fill. It's like a mini belt sander. I have an idea that is absolutely genius if this works. Not in there. Wait. I don't know where it is. That's a dangerous thing. No. I give up. I don't know what I did with my throttle pedal, but that's my idea. The original throttle pedal will bolt to the floor perfectly, and it uses a rod just like the new one. So all I gotta do is modify the rod, and I combine the new school pedal with the original pedal, and Bob's your uncle. I don't know who Bob is and why he became your uncle, but... You look like a nice piece of cardboard. It'd be a shame if someone cut you up. Hope I didn't need that box. I know some of you are going to say that this doesn't look OEM with it having little yellow doors and a clear lid. Don't worry, I have a plan for that. Now these little doors require space. Oh, okay. Man, am I good. Example number 5628, why silver Sharpie markers are amazing. Because you can write on top of black Sharpie markers with it. That's my bracket brace. Arts and crafts time. The problem with cardboard is it's weaker than steel. Case in point. That will bolt like that. It'll be rigid and stepped away a little bit. Boom. That'll do. There's only one downside about this, is it's gonna be metal on metal close together. And that's a prime place for dirt and crud to collect. I could add little spacers, or I could weird weld a captured nut shield blob. If you have a better suggestion than this, leave a comment down below and I will consider it. With that said, the plan is for the next video to get this thing cleaned up and in the booth so I can spray the underside of the trunk lid, hood, and the engine bay. In regards to the end of the previous video, as of the day of recording this video right now, I still do not have the lab results back yet on Ping, so I don't know what the situation is, what his outcome is going to be. I'm hoping for the best, expecting the worst. I've already made peace with the idea of potentially losing him in the near future. He's on antibiotics, the swelling has gone down in his face, but his jawbone you can feel is all misshapen inside there. So there's definitely something serious regardless whether it's cancer or not, and he doesn't seem like he's in pain though right now, and he's eating and he's playing, so that's all that really matters. And yeah, I'll keep you guys posted. So thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you soon with another. Bye.